policy on PV, say, including the fit-in tariff design and also business model development, as well as in her more recent project on net metering scheme. So a very, very comprehensive understanding of very different policy available for PV energy options. And recently, she currently is, as I said, she is with Chulalongkorn University, and her work caught our attention because one of their recent projects is to develop the national solar PV roadmap for the government, and that definitely is a very good piece of research work with a solid stakeholder engagement element in it. So with this, I would like to invite you to join me to welcome Dr. Suk to give us this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So I'm Sophie from the Energy Research Institute. I'm a researcher there based in Bangkok, Thailand. And this project called Thailand Solar PV Roadmap Initiative was based on a project funded by the UK Embassy Bangkok between 2013 and 2015. So let me give an introduction on Thailand a little bit. Thailand is one of the 10 Southeast Asian countries. Each Southeast Asian countries have their own unique energy circumstances. In Thailand, we have a population around 17 million, and we're demanding more and more electricity coming from importing from our neighboring countries. In terms of our local power capacity generation, we rely mostly on natural gas. So around 60% of generation capacity comes from natural gas-based generation. And understand that in China, you rely heavily, maybe 60% also on coal, and you're trying to shift more toward natural gas. In Thailand, we're doing the opposite. We're relying on natural gas, and we're trying to diversify toward more coal power. So this is our current installed capacity share by type of fuel source, and these are our plans for the future. So we're introducing more coal, introducing more renewables, and also importing more and more hydropower from neighboring countries like Laos and Myanmar. So renewables makes a large share. We're aiming to have 20% of renewable capacity contributing to the total installed capacity by 2036. So that's in the next 20 years. So how ambitious is that? So you can see the numbers in terms of the targets for each type of renewable. For solar power, we're aiming for around 6,000 megawatts. So that's around 6 gigawatts. How ambitious is this? If you consider the growth rate over the past 3 years, the growth rate for all types of renewables has been quite high, especially for solar power. We have had compound annual growth rate at about 50% per year. And this is considered really high when compared to what is demanded to achieve the target in the next 21 years. So we can actually do more, higher, at a faster rate than what the targets are requiring. And this is the landscape for renewables is really changing quickly, partly because of the cost of solar and wind have come down so quickly, to the point where when we calculated the cost of generation for rooftop solar PV power under different business models last year, we found that large-scale commercial installation of solar power under a model called solar PV here, almost competitive with buying electricity from the grid. So this means that it makes sense to invest and buy solar power than to buy from your local utility. And this number is from last year, but this year is already competitive, meaning that commercial scale rooftop installations, it makes sense for them. They can do a lot of saving, they can solar system and save and replace that with electricity that they would otherwise have to buy from the utility. So this trend is, and I would say that unstoppable for Thailand. This is the growth rate that we've had. It has been an exponential growth rate for solar power in Thailand. And right now we currently have about 2 gigawatts of maybe more than 2, because this is from the end of last year. More than 2 gigawatts of solar installed capacity, and this trend has tracked the global change. Currently, the total installed capacity in the world is around this much, 200 gigawatts. But this installed capacity in Thailand, although it looks impressive, most of it comes from large-scale solar farm. So this one, I compare the share of different solar installation at different scales in different countries for you. So the purple is pricing larger than 1 megawatt. So 99% of solar installed capacity in Thailand comes from large utility scale solar farm, whereas in other countries that have that began to support solar power first, they put a more concentration on small scale like residential and commercial scale rooftop, like in Germany, Italy, the UK. So this was like a starting point for our project that we realized the potential that solar power could be higher potential, and also we didn't really have any rooftop solar that 2 years ago. So we started the project of Solar PV Roadmap Initiative with the purpose to engage the stakeholders toward the development of a Thailand Solar PV Roadmap, and at the same time try to analyze the business landscapes to see what business models were emerging and what kind of policy and regulatory intervention that the government can do to enable those business expansions. So in the process of stakeholder engagement, we basically ask these basic questions. We ask where we are today in terms of solar, what kind of barriers have we been facing, and what we other stakeholders imagine our solar future to be, and how do we get there. These are the basic questions for the solar roadmap development. And in the process, we had 5 seminars and 4 workshops to engage the stakeholders in the solar roadmap development process. And afterwards, we were able to identify the benefits that people would like to get when we support more solar, the kind of barriers that are in the way to obstruct solar power development, especially rooftop solar. We engage people to develop 3 scenarios for the next 20 years and a vision for solar power development in Thailand, and also the quantitative targets for each scenario as well as the strategies. When we talk about a vision for solar PV development, it's kind of hard. Like, let's say I ask you in a workshop, what do you think would be a vision for solar PV development? That's kind of hard to say, right? So we had to ask a different kind of question. So we asked about the elements of the vision that you'd like to include in the vision for Thailand solar PV development. And we talk about value chain, whether Thailand can become the ASEAN leader in the solar PV value chain. The reason why we say ASEAN is because we realize we cannot compete with China, because China is already the leader in global solar PV value chain. So we think that there is some gap we can fill for the ASEAN. And then energy security is really important for Thailand and also for China. So whether solar power can contribute to energy security through the decrease in reliance on natural gas. And do you want this to happen at reasonable price? Do you want green decentralization where power production becomes more distributed to the consumers? So we use the so-called clicker technology for people to literally vote for these elements in the vision, and we got these results of voting. So most people wanted energy security as the key concern, but maybe you can say that the composition of the stakeholders may affect this because a lot of utilities came in as well in this workshop. and they also want green decentralization. So we were able to construct a vision statement for development as follows. Solar PV enhances energy security through the decentralization toward green power sources and the reduction of dependence on fossil fuels. And when we wrote out this vision statement, we also discussed with the stakeholders in the workshop until we get a consensus that this is what we want. And you can notice that they didn't talk about value chain, partly because we don't have enough confidence that we can go up and become a leader in the value chain. Let's say we become a manufacturing leader in Southeast Asia, for example. In the workshop processes, we also design survey forms to collect the opinions of the stakeholders on the benefits that they would like to get from solar PV and also on the barriers that they see. And I forgot to mention where the stakeholders come from. The stakeholders come mainly from the government officials, the policymakers, the utilities, the private companies who are developers and investors and banks, but not so many consumers in the workshop. So they identify these barriers. The top barriers include inconsistent support due to political reasons, because in Thailand you may have heard in the news that we changed the government a lot. We have had a lot of military coups. So when a new government comes in, then the policy changes all of a sudden. So that has been a problem that's still persistent until today. And then another major problem or barrier is the complicated regulation and permitting procedure. So for solar farms as well as rooftop solar, the people who invest in it still have to ask for many permits. Back then for a small rooftop, household rooftop, they still have to ask for like 5 permits, including an industrial permit. So that really delays the implementation. They were also concerned about the high cost and the lack of a clear vision by the government on solar is also another key barrier. We also asked the stakeholders to quantify, to try to think about how much solar contribution can contribute toward the share of power generation. So we asked questions like what's the target of solar power electricity that usage is appropriate by the year 2035? And we also asked them what should be the target for the installed capacity and by which year. So you can see that in the 10 years term, 2025, people are thinking about 20 to 30%, whereas in the longer term, 20 years from now, they were thinking about 30 to 40%. And this was based on really guessing and maybe expert opinion from the utilities what is possible, and not so much on the technical analysis. So based on the same survey, so we were able to say that by the end of 2020, the target could be 10%. In the next 10 years, the target could be 20%, and in the next 35 years, the target could be 30% of the total installed capacity. And we also asked them, what kind of benefit is it that you'd like to get from solar PV development? And the top 3 benefits that people could identify were the reduction of CO2 emissions, easing dependence upon fossil fuels, and decentralization of power generation sources. Now you may think that when people adopt solar PV, especially distributed solar, are these benefits automatically achieved? The answer may be no, because even though people use more solar power, they may reduce the need to burn fossil fuels at the power plants, right? So the reduction of CO2 emission, yes, you reduce CO2 emission right away, but whether you can result or whether the society has more decentralization, it doesn't depend on the people alone. even if people adopt more and more solar, you have more rooftop with solar. The system may remain centralized. Why? Because the utilities may think that they may need to back up that power, the solar power, with fossil fuel-based generation. And that's pretty much the attitude in Thailand and also maybe in the US 20 years ago, because they think that solar power and wind power are variable and unreliable. So it cannot produce electricity 24 hours. So every time that new 100 megawatt solar comes up, they may need to back that up with another 100 megawatt of fossil-based power plant. So it doesn't result in the benefit of decentralization, and it may not reduce the rates for the customers either. So we ask them to vote to give a score to different types of benefits. And we offer to them many times, and the top benefits are the ones that I listed earlier. Here's a composition of the stakeholders who voted. So you can see quite good distribution of government utilities and private sector, but not so much the consumers. So here is another vote and another vote, another set of votes. So this picture, the picture that came out, allow us to kind of see the scenarios or the kind of benefits that people want to materialize. So we group these benefits in colors, as you can see here. So the first group of benefits is more focused on carbon emission reduction, increase in energy security. The second group of benefits is based on increase in consumers' participation, decentralized power, the benefits of to the grid, such as loss reduction. The third groups of benefits are more based on economic development associated with the value chain. For example, increase domestic technological innovation, or become a leader in ASEAN solar PV business and job creation. So based on this grouping of benefits, and also based on another framework that we think about, we were able to develop 3 scenarios for solar PV development in Thailand in the next 20 years. And the framework that we used was based on Shell global economic scenarios for 2025, I think. And what Shell does is to look at the key major players that affects policy and affects the outcomes of the policy. So the 3 key players are the public agencies for the government, whether they are effective at pushing policy, the private sector, whether they can promote competition and promote more economic activities, and the users, the extent to which they become proactive and aware of the energy options. So in the first scenario, called domestic market rule, it's based on the government wanting to reduce carbon emission reduction, so they provide really strong and continuous incentive in the form of feed-in tariff. And then, okay, I forgot to mention that for each scenario, there will be 2 forces represented by the 2 corners that dominate, where the other one is kind of left out in the policy landscape. So in the first scenario, the government and the users dominate. The government provides strong incentives, and people are highly aware and ready to adopt solar. And private sector just responds to what's happening by providing services at all scales. In the second scenario, the government didn't do much, or doesn't do much. They limit domestic market because of the fear of rate increases that will be caused by solar power. So because of that, it's dominated by the government and the private sector. The private sector responds because the private sector really has some growth due to the growth of solar farm. We have had many companies that are able to install solar systems. So they look elsewhere outside Thailand to go and develop solar farms there instead. And that's what they have been doing really due to the lack of policy in Thailand. They go out to Laos, they go out to Myanmar, they go out to the Philippines, and even Japan to develop and invest in solar farm projects. So, and the users don't know very much. They have moderate awareness. In the third scenario called open and innovative market, here we have very active consumers combined with the competitive private sector. So even though the government doesn't play any role in offering new incentives, they don't give any feed-in tariff or anything. But people are very active in trying to adopt solar, enthusiastic about solar energy technology, and private sector try to offer innovative business models to the people. So these are really storylines for the scenarios that will eventually be quantified, but we also discuss the scenarios with different stakeholders. And because of the fact that the government at the time, or 2 years ago, or even now, solar power is not a priority in Thailand. It's not as prioritized as coal or nuclear power. So we kind of give options in terms of scenarios. We didn't direct like this. We didn't direct the stakeholders toward a single scenario because we're afraid that that might be just too narrow. We leave the options open in terms of the 3 scenarios, and we ask the stakeholders in the workshop to divide it into 3 groups according to what scenario they preferred. And also leave room open for them to propose a new scenario as well, but they didn't propose any new scenario. So you can see that we structure the scenarios ahead of the workshop and let them participate in the scenario making. We also did some projection of the total installed capacity under each scenario. And this is based on the stakeholder voting that in the next 20 years, the total installed capacity of solar power will make up around 30% of the installed capacity at the time. So it grows up to around 20 gigawatts. So that's the reason behind my talk, 20 gigawatts in 20 years. And then that's the high scenario. And then the lowest scenario is when the government doesn't do anything based on a linear projection of the status quo. And then that's the middle scenario. The middle scenario making up around 10%. So we match these numbers with each one, and then we calculated the benefit in terms of carbon emission reduction, fossil fuel reduction, jobs creation under each scenario, as you can see here. And in the process of stakeholders' involvement for each scenario, we told them that in order for it to happen, you need to identify the drivers and barriers in order to create an action plan or a set of action plans for each one. And in plotting or ranking or giving scores to the driver barriers, you look at them in terms of the impact and the likelihood. So some drivers will have a high impact on policy and on the solar power install capacity. High impact over here, right? But if they have really low likelihood, high impact and low likelihood, so it means it's not going to happen. We don't need to pay attention to it. But if it has low impact and high likelihood that it can happen, we don't pay attention either because it has a low impact. We will pay attention to the ones up here in the right, upper right corner because they're the ones with high impact and high likelihood to happen. So for this domestic market rule scenario, the high impact, high likelihood scenario would be the demand, which makes sense. If people have higher demand for electricity, they would drive demand for PV electricity, they would drive for more solar. And then another important driver is the FIT, feed-in tariff support scheme. If the government wants solar market to grow that fast, they definitely need to continue the feed-in tariff. The key barriers are the discontinuity of support policy, which makes sense. If the policy comes and goes, then the market is not going to grow, for example. So to develop the action plan, you need to eliminate these high impact barriers, and you need to make the drivers, the strong drivers, happen in reality. So we develop a set of action plans. So for example, the stakeholders realize that the policy making process for solar power in Thailand is still pretty much top down. The government just hand over whatever they study to the public, and a lot of problems come up later. So they ask the government to receive inputs from more diverse stakeholders before they formulate a plan and try to synchronize more between different agencies. And they want feed-in tariff measure to have continuity with a clear and fixed revision timeline. Okay, so I won't go into details. In the next scenario, ASEAN market leader, here we envision Thailand as participating in solar innovation, in solar module innovation, and in doing manufacturing for solar power, and being a center in ASEAN in terms of installation. Our businesses go out to install in ASEAN countries. But in order to have this scenario to happen, you need a foreign government policies that encourage investment from abroad. So that's a key driver that they identify. And you also need high economic growth in neighboring countries. If you have growth in Vietnam, growth in Laos, growth in Myanmar, then they have stronger demand for power, which means solar PV also demanded in those countries. But then if there's economic recession in those countries, then it's a key barrier for solar PV as well. So these are some of the examples. So in terms of the action plans, we realize that the government needs to build partnerships among the ASEAN countries in order to enable the Thai businesses to go in and build a stronghold in those countries. And also, the government needs to have a clear solar industrial policy because in the past and up to now, actually, solar energy policy in Thailand has been based on expanding the market, adopting the use, but not so much an industrial policy unlike in China, where you started out with trying to promote your own local manufacturing industries. The third case, open and innovative market. We imagine that we have a lot of SMEs participating in the solar value chain. So you can walk around and find shop houses, being an installer of solar PV systems, they can maintain and operate the solar PV systems. And in order to do this, I think the most important driver is the oligopoly reduction, because this is based on past experiences where solar farms have been dominated. The contracts have been won by a few large solar companies, so they want this to be reduced. And then you also need innovative financing mechanisms because the upfront cost for solar power for rooftop systems are still quite high for the average consumers. So they want financing, for example, solar loans from banks or other innovative business models like you release solar or you can buy electricity without paying the high upfront cost, for example. Okay, so these lead to the action plans. For example, they realize that in order for the consumers to be more engaged or to be more receptive of solar power, the existing photo PV association has to do more work. They need to do more lobbying, they need to do more consumer awareness campaign, which is something that they're lacking. Okay, so these are some of the examples. Even though in this scenario we don't need any kind of government support, but you still need an enabling environment from the government, for example, in terms of permits. Even if you don't need support, you still need easy permits. You don't want to go through many permits